Does your cat have diarrhea right now? And you're standing in the kitchen staring into your pantry wondering if there's something sitting on a shelf that works better than the classic chicken and rice fix everyone talks about online. I want to give you an honest, useful answer today instead of selling you a miracle cure because feline diarrhea can come from a whole range of different causes. And what actually helps your cat depends heavily on what's causing it in the first place. There isn't a single teaspoon of anything on earth that reliably erases diarrhea faster than proper supportive care. And I think you deserve to know that up front rather than after you've tried something that didn't work. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tony Lee, your neighborhood veterinarian. Diarrhea is one of the single most common reasons cats end up in my exam room. And it's also, unfortunately, one of the most oversimplified topics you'll find scattered across the internet. Today I want to walk you through why chicken and rice actually works the way it does, what you can realistically add to support your cat's gut while things settle, and just as importantly, the clear warning signs that tell you home. Care isn't enough anymore, and it's time to actually call your vet instead of waiting it out. Hit subscribe if you want more of these honest, practical breakdowns, and let's get into it. Let's start with why the bland diet approach works in the first place, since understanding the mechanism actually matters here. Plain boiled chicken and plain white rice is bland, low in fat, and extremely easy to digest, which gives an irritated gastrointestinal tract a genuine break from having to work hard while it heals itself. Think of it like resting a sprained ankle instead of running on it. The chicken provides easily digestible protein without a lot of added fat that could further irritate the gut. And the plain white rice, being low in fiber and gentle on the stomach, helps bind things together somewhat while providing a bit of easy energy. But here's the important nuance a lot of owners miss. This combination is a supportive measure, not a cure in any real sense. It doesn't actually address whatever triggered the diarrhea to begin with. Whether that's something as simple as a dietary indiscretion from getting into the trash, a sudden, abrupt food change, stress from a move or a new pet in the house, intestinal parasites, or something considerably more serious like a bacterial or viral infection, or a chronic underlying condition like inflammatory bowel disease. Chicken and rice calms the surface symptoms while the actual cause continues doing whatever it's doing underneath. So, if you're looking for something specific to add alongside that bland diet while you monitor things, plain canned pumpkin, and I want to stress plain, not pumpkin pie filling, which is loaded with sugar and spices that can make things worse, is genuinely one of the most useful things you can keep stocked in your pantry for exactly this situation. Pumpkin is high in soluble fiber, and soluble fiber does something interesting in the gut. It absorbs excess water, which helps firm up loose, watery stool, while also acting as a prebiotic that feeds and supports the healthy bacteria already living in your cat's intestines. A small amount, roughly a teaspoon for an average-sized adult cat, mixed directly into their food once or twice a day, is a reasonable and safe starting point for most otherwise healthy cats dealing with mild short-term diarrhea. Alongside pumpkin, plain unflavored kefir or a vet-approved feline probiotic powder can also genuinely help, since diarrhea itself often disrupts the delicate balance of good bacteria living in the gut, and restoring that balance can speed along recovery once the initial irritation has settled. I'd introduce either of these gradually rather than all at once, since dairy-based products don't agree with every cat, and some cats are lactose intolerant enough that even a small amount of kefir could make loose stool temporarily worse rather than better. Starting with just a small amount and watching how your cat responds over a day or two is the safest way to test whether it's actually helping. Now, here's the honest limitation of all of this that I think deserves real attention because it's the part most flashy titles conveniently skip over. None of these home editions, not pumpkin, not kefir, not chicken and rice, actually treat whatever is causing the diarrhea underneath the surface. If your cat's diarrhea is being caused by intestinal parasites like roundworms or Giardia, a bacterial infection like salmonella, a viral infection, a genuine food allergy or sensitivity, or a chronic condition like inflammatory bowel disease or hyperthyroidism, pumpkin and a bland diet might make the stool look slightly firmer and more normal for a day or two, all while the actual underlying problem continues progressing quietly in the background. This is exactly how a lot of owners end up delaying a necessary vet visit by weeks or even months, because the home remedy created just enough visible improvement to make it feel like things were resolving, when in reality the root cause was never addressed at all. This matters even more when we're talking about kittens, since young cats have dramatically less reserve capacity to handle fluid loss than adult cats do, and diarrhea in a kitten can turn into a genuine emergency far faster than most owners expect. It also matters for senior cats, especially those with any existing kidney, thyroid, or heart conditions, since ongoing fluid loss from ongoing diarrhea can destabilize those conditions surprisingly quickly, even if the diarrhea itself seems relatively mild on the surface. So let's talk specifically about when this stops being a reasonable wait and see situation at home, because knowing these red flags is honestly more valuable than any home remedy I could give you. If diarrhea lasts more than roughly 24 to 48 hours without any real improvement, that's your first signal that something more than a simple dietary upset might be going on. And it's worth a call to your vet, even if your cat still seems otherwise fine. If you notice blood in the stool, whether that's bright red streaking or a stool that looks unusually dark, black, and tarry, that needs same-day veterinary attention, since both can indicate bleeding somewhere along the gastrointestinal tract that requires proper diagnosis rather than home management. If diarrhea is accompanied by vomiting, noticeable lethargy, or your cat refusing to eat for more than a meal or two, that combination of symptoms together is a much stronger indicator of something systemic going on rather than a simple isolated stomach upset. And as I mentioned, if you have a kitten, a senior cat, or a cat with any existing health condition like diabetes, kidney disease, or a heart condition, I'd skip the wait and see approach entirely and just call your vet proactively, since these are exactly the cats who can decline rapidly from dehydration in a way that healthy adult cats generally don't. I also want to touch briefly on hydration, since it ties directly into all of this and gets overlooked constantly. Diarrhea causes ongoing fluid loss, and cats are notoriously prone to underdrinking water, even when perfectly healthy, which means a cat with diarrhea is often losing fluid faster than they're naturally inclined to replace it on their own. Encouraging water intake during this time genuinely matters, and a few simple tricks can help. Offering fresh water in multiple locations around the house, using a wide, shallow bowl since some cats dislike whisker contact with narrow bowls, or even offering a small amount of the water drained from a can of plain tuna in water, not oil, as an incentive to drink a bit more. A pet water fountain can also encourage some cats to drink more than they would from a still bowl, since many cats have a natural preference for moving water, going back to their instincts as desert-dwelling animals. One more practical point worth making here, since I know a lot of owners will ask about this in the comments regardless. Over-the-counter human anti-drawer heel medications like Imodium or Pepto-Bismol should never be given to a cat without direct veterinary guidance. Pepto-Bismol in particular contains a compound related to aspirin that cats process very poorly compared to dogs or humans, and it can become genuinely toxic even at doses that would be perfectly safe for a person. If your cat's diarrhea feels severe enough that you're reaching for a medication cabinet, that's actually the clearest sign that it's time to call your vet rather than try to manage it yourself with products designed for an entirely different species. To bring this all together into something practical you can actually use, here's a reasonable approach for otherwise healthy adult cats dealing with mild short-term diarrhea that isn't accompanied by any of those red flag symptoms I mentioned. Offer a bland diet of plain boiled chicken and plain white rice for a day or two. Mix in a small teaspoon of plain canned pumpkin once or twice daily to help firm things up. Encourage water intake throughout the day using whatever tricks work best for your particular cat, and keep a close eye on how things progress over the next 24 to 48 hours. If things are clearly improving within that window, you're likely dealing with something minor that's resolving on its own with a little support. If things aren't improving, or if any of those red flag symptoms show up at any point along the way, that's your cue to stop waiting and get your cat seen properly, since a vet visit at that point can catch and treat the actual underlying cause before it has a chance to become something more serious. I want to leave you with this thought because I think it's the most honest and useful takeaway from everything we've covered today. Home remedies like pumpkin and bland chicken and rice absolutely have a real legitimate place in supporting a cat through a mild short-term stomach upset. And I use both of these recommendations regularly with my own clients, but they were never designed to be a substitute for figuring out why the diarrhea started in the first place. And leaning on them for too long without improvement can quietly delay treatment for something that actually needed veterinary attention from the start. The goal isn't to avoid the vet at all costs. It's to know the difference between a situation you can reasonably support at home and one that genuinely needs a professional diagnosis. Has your cat dealt with recurring or chronic diarrhea before, and what ended up actually helping once you got to the bottom of it? Tell me about your experience in the comments below. I read every single one, and I know a lot of other cat owners watching this will genuinely benefit from hearing what worked for you. And if you'd find it helpful, let me know down below, and I'll put together a dedicated deeper dive video specifically on how to tell the difference between diarrhea that's genuinely minor and diarrhea. That's a red flag for something bigger going on, since that's clearly a topic a lot of you are curious about. I'm Dr. Tony Lee. Thank you for loving your pets enough to look past the quick fix and actually get to the bottom of what's going on with them.